Hello guys, and welcome in this new video on Medicode. And last week we've seen how we could add a collision handler into our game, but this week we're going to add some final things for making it more real, like play, pause, or whatever, exit, so a menu or something like that. And we're just gonna finish it. This is the last video of this video series, and I'm really glad that you go through this and you keep on with me. So let's get started and make this finish. Hey guys, thank you for watching videos on my channel. Please think about to subscribe for helping me doing more such of videos. So for beginning, you will need to define some couple of variables. So here, for example, we have score, level, difficulty, pause, and game over. So this is actually a score is for the score that will appear on the screen. Level will define in at what level we actually are, and difficulty will actually set up how many enemies will be able to shoot. That's actually the idea of this difficulty. And pause and game over, that's almost clear, I think. And you will also need to initialize them. So in the beginning the game is in pause, that's why we say false, and as long as we are playing the game isn't over, so that's why false. And the same thing will be done. Difficulty, we start with 9 because we're actually going to decrease it from 9 to 0. Actually, I choose to use it like that because it was easier for me. I will explain you later why. So this actually, just write it like that, and you will see why I'm saying that. Now the next thing you can do is just drag and drop 2 buttons and a label. So as you can see in those buttons, we have the replay buttons and the exit buttons, and think about to set the name of those buttons. For example, replay buttons and exit buttons. And you also need a label. So if you remember in the last video, we've seen the method came over, and that method took a string as parameter. Actually, that parameter will be the text that will be displayed at the place of this label here. So that's it for now. And you also need to set the visibility of these 3 things to false, because when we start again we don't want to see this appears on the screen. So set the visibility to false, and they will appear when the player will die. Now just go back into your code, and you need to find the KeyDown method that we added in previous videos. So that's where we were handling all keys press. So for right moving, left moving, down and up movings, if you remember, there we used the timer for setting up the position of the player. But actually now we're going to add something on that, because when, for example, the game stopped, when the player died, we are still able to move. Even if he's invisible, we're still able to start the timer, because every time when you push this button, then this timer starts, for example, and that's the same case for all those buttons. So what we're actually going to do, we'll simply say if the game is in pause, then all this can work. So just copy this part here and paste that here inside. So this is simply for preventing our game for being able to start timers even when we pause or even when we stop the game. So that's why we check if the game is in pause, or if the game is paused, then we know what we have to do. So that's it for this function. Now we move on a little bit and check out the KeyOp method. So as you can see, I added some couple of code inside there, and it's really simple. We just check if the space button has been pushed. If the game isn't over, then we check if the game is paused. If that's the case, then that means the player is actually going to replay, to restart from the pause date. So, and in that case, we set all timer to start. So we start all timers, and the label visibility will be false. The game media will start playing, and the pause variable will be set to false. That means the game is actually now running. But if the game is in pause, that means if the player is actually playing and he pushed the space button, then we just make the text appear with pause, and we set the visibility to true, because if you remember, we set the standard value of the visibility to false because we don't want it to appear every time. And we stop also the song, the background song. We stop all timers, and we set pause to true. So if you have this, you can just compile it and see if it's working. So if I push the space button, then you have disappeared, and I can also still play. So but see, now I'm dead, but if I push the space, then the game simply restart, even if I'm no longer on the screen. So we need to handle that. Now the next thing you can do is just go into your game over function, and there you have to add some couple of code. So in the last video we had this code here, but now I added a couple of lines. Actually all I do here is I set my label position, and I also set the replay button and the exit button visibility to true, so that they appears on the screen as a menu. So now the next thing you need to do is to double click on these two buttons, because we want to add some event handler for them, so that when we click on this button, then we exit the game. The same thing for replay. So in my case, I've already clicked on them and I add these two event handler for click. So in the exit button, I just write environment exit. So when we click on this button, then we just quit the game. And on the replay button, when you click on that, then we first clear the screen, because we want everything to be destroyed. And then we initialize all components. Something like we just reload the screen simply. So if you have this, you can compile it and see what's going on. And then, so if I push exit, then everything got closed, and if I push replay, then we restart over. So that's it. So now we need to add, to make this game a little bit dynamic. That's why we're going to add some things that will make the game difficult, so that when the player get to the next level, then more enemies are able to shoot, or enemies become faster or something like that. So let's do this. So if you go back to your collision function and you check a little bit, then you will see that you don't have this code around here. It's because I already added it. So as you can see here, we just set up the code. We just increase the code every time when we have collision between my munitions and enemies. And this is just for setting up how the text will actually look like. So if the number is smaller than 10, then we add a 0 in front of that number. That's simply. So and here the score, each time, every time when we have a multiple of 30, then we get to the next level. So that means for 30, 60, 90, we just increase the level every time, and so go on. So and this is also for setting up how the level should look like. And in the same range, we also check if the enemy speed is smaller than 10, then we can still increase the enemy speed, because in this game I set the maximal enemy speed to 10 pixels, and the munition speed also. Now we also have the difficulty. So the difficulty, just do the opposite of enemy speed. So we decrease it. That's why we initialize it with 9. So I told you before to initialize the difficulty with 9. So we just decrease it. I will explain you in a couple of seconds why we will be decreasing it. So and then we just decrease every time when we haven't reached 0, then we decrease. So at the same time we do the same for speed and munition speed. So and if the player have reached the 10th level, then the game will simply say nice done, and the game will be over there. So if you have this, just compile it and check if it's working. So it's working, but as you can see now, all enemies in the beginning are able to shoot, and we don't want that. We want that just one enemy in the beginning be able to shoot, so that we increase with the level. When the player get to the next level, then more enemies will be able to shoot. So let's do this. Now the last step you need to do for making this complete, then just go into your enemies munition timer tick, and there you just write this. So if you remember, when we start this project, we set up the enemies array, the enemies munition array to 10 picture boxes. And if you also remember, we set difficulty to 9. So what we're actually doing here is, when the game start, then we just take the 10 munition and then we remove the difficulty inside of that. So this is the length of our munitions array. So we just remove the difficulty in that. So if the difficulty is 9 and this size is actually 10, then we start the game with just one enemy's munition. And with that, we can just simply set one enemy being able to shoot. And when the player kills 30 enemies, then more enemies, then he get into the next level and the difficulty became 8. So I mean, it was 9, then it became 8. That's why we got now 2 enemies munitions, and so go on till we reach all enemies being able to shoot. So this is the main idea behind this code. So if you have this, you can simply compile it and check if it's working. So in my case, you have this up here. So let me kill 30 enemies. As you can see, just one enemy is now able to shoot. But if I kill 30 enemies, what happened? Let's check it out. So as you can see now, 2 enemies are able to shoot. And if I keep on playing, then you will see that their speed also became bigger, and the munition speed also became faster, and the game became harder. So it's kind of a funny thing. I like it. So now we have 3 enemies. Yeah, now we have 4 enemies, and you can see the speed is becoming also higher. The level, now I'm going to die. Okay, I'm done. Okay, as you can see, it's working nicely. And that was all for this video series. Thank you guys for keeping on doing this project with me. It was a nice time for me helping you improving yourself in coding in C#. I also learned a lot. And it will really make me happy if you just hit the subscribe button and like this video, or maybe share with other people. So guys, I hope to see you in the next videos on my channel, and stay creative. I will see you next time.